Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Na me partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana anavaptam avaptavyam varta eva cha karmani na me partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. This is Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text 22. That's 3.22. Navaptam avaptavyam varta eva chakarmani name partasti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchana. Na, not, me, mine, parta, osanaprita, asti, there is, kartavyam, prescribed duty, trishu, in the three, lokeshu, planetary systems, kinchana, any, na, nothing, anavaptam, wanted, avaptavyam, to be gained, varte, I am engaged, eva, certainly, cha, also, karmani, in prescribed duty. O son of Prita, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described in the Vedic literatures as follows. Tam Ishvarnam Paramam Maheshvaram Tam Devatanam Paramam Chadaivatam Patim Patinam Paramam Parastad Vidama Devam Bhuvanesham Idyam Natasya Karyam Karnam Chavidyate Natat Samascha Vyadikascha Drisyate Parasya Shaktir Vivideva Sriyate Svabhaki Jnana Balakriyat. The Supreme Lord is the controller of all other controllers, and He is the greatest of all the diverse planetary leaders. Everyone is under His control. All entities are delegated with particular power only by the Supreme Lord. They are not supreme themselves. He is also worshipable by all demigods and is the supreme director of all directors. Therefore, He is transcendental to all kinds of material leaders and controllers and is worshipable by all. There is no one greater than Him, and He is the supreme cause of all causes. He does not possess a bodily form like that of an ordinary living entity. There is no difference between His body and His soul. He is absolute. All His senses are transcendental. Any one of His senses can perform the actions of any other sense. Therefore, no one is greater than Him or equal to Him. His potencies are multifarious, and thus His deeds are automatically performed as a natural sequence. Svetasvatara Upanishad 6, 7, and 8. Since everything is in full opulence in the personality of Godhead and is existing in full truth, there is no duty for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to perform. One who must receive the results of work has some designated duty. But one who has nothing to achieve within the 3 planetary systems certainly has no duty. And yet Lord Krishna is engaged on the battlefield of Kurukshetra as the leader of the Kshatriyas, because the Kshatriyas are duty-bound to give protection to the distressed. Although he is above all the regulations of the revealed scriptures, he does not do anything that violates the revealed scriptures. Om Gyantimanandasya Jananjana Shlagya Chaksanamina Tasmai Shigurubinma Shridatanamana Vaishnam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Pagaramayandrati Svavarantikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Sarigaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I a need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So, I know this is I'm going to give a little short personal 2 stories on my life. That's like a microcosm of this, and I say like because it's not exactly, because I'm not on Krishna's level perfectly, right? I mean, of course he's supreme, but I'm a part of him and equal in quality, but I'm not even on that fully realized level. So it's very much like, not exact. So I recall going on this music tour and distributing a lot of books and being thoroughly exhausted. It was quite a yajna. And at the end of the yajna, my nervous system was shot, and I noticed a pattern in me. I noticed my motivation. My motivation was out of fear. I would do this activity. Fear of going to hell, fear of falling back into my old patterns that would definitely lead me into hell, and all that. And I wanted to find a more sustainable drive, because this old pattern was not, old motivation it wasn't sustainable. So I decided that I'm going to rest, and if I don't desire to ever serve Krishna again, then, well, I probably would, but distribute books particularly, if I'm not motivated to distribute books, I'm just not going to do it. I want to find some inner motivation coming from within. So I was really tired. So about 3 days went by, but then on the 4th day, I just got up and started distributing again. Out of this is just more natural. And I tried to keep that natural flow. And then I did that for about a decade, every summer doing this concert tour. And then after about a decade of doing that, I got to a point where, I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but I got to a point where those old motivations kind of wore out, and I needed to find something deeper. And I started to ask the question, why am I doing this? Although I would still go out and distribute the books. And, but I needed to have a higher reason to do it. In fact, I even asked myself, why do I bother to live? Why not go all the way to the depth of, the issues? So I was just questioning, why even bother to live, let alone do anything? Why get up in the morning? Why put food in the mouth? All this. And this went on for quite some time, for a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And I was just going deeper and deeper into it. Once it reached a pinnacle, this person with a t-shirt on kind of just stuck in front of my face, and where I was kind of forced to read the t-shirt and focus on the t-shirt. And on the t-shirt it said, "Live to love." And I thought, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. Live to love. This is a higher motivation for me. This is, rather than trying to win the book score, rah, rah, yeah, I won, whatever. And, this kind of drive, it's now, how about live to love? That worked for me. Like, it felt like this is where it's at. So, Krishna, now extrapolating greatly, Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, what the Chatur Shloki, Krishna's telling Brahma, whatever existed before the creation, before material nature, was all that was there was I, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and everything that you see now is I, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when everything is annihilated again, all that will exist is I, the Personality of Godhead. So Krishna, everything's part of Krishna, and to think anything is separate from Krishna, know that, O Brahma, to be my illusory energy. So, and even that illusory energy is a part of Krishna. So, but the appearance that it is separate from Krishna is his illusory energy. So, and so my point being, the microcosm and the macro situation, Krishna doesn't need anything. Although still, he does. And why does he do? Stated that something along the lines of, my heart is far from irreligious principles. He's like religious principles personified. We can see in the pastimes of Krishna and his incarnations, like Lord Ramachandra, within the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, it's all about adhering to these higher duties of regulative principles so strictly. And his pure devotees, of course, Yudhisthira, and so forth and so on, Arjuna, all these amazing personalities that are like Krishna in that sense, that they are godly. Yes, yasti, bhaktir Bhagavad-Gita, suryer gunaishtatra samasate surharava bhaktasya kato mahadguna manotarnasli davato bihi. The demigods and their exalted qualities, such as knowledge, religion, and renunciation, become manifest in one who has attained unflinching devotion unto the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. One who is devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities, even if he is adept at the practice of Astanga yoga, mystic yoga, or involved with the faithful execution of taking care of one's family and relatives. He must be driven by the speculative mind, and therefore must be engaged in the external energy of the Lord. How can there be any good qualities in such a person? So, I'll extrapolate on that later, about how devotees are godly. But first, making the point clear that Krishna, we see in Krishna's pastimes, as Krishna, he would go and play his Vaishya role very nicely. He'd go out and herd the cows, right? In fact, he was so loving to the cows that his mother wanted to make shoes for Krishna, because there's thorns out there and he's going barefoot. And so when Mother Yasoda made shoes for him, he says, I can't wear these, because if I have to wear them, then if I put them on, then all the cows have to have shoes too. I'll put them on, but as long as you got shoes for all the cows. So we see Krishna's, fine-tuned in basic principles, religious principles, and completely selfless in that sense, loving, caring, and we see that he gets up in the morning and is in Dvaraka, and he meditates upon himself, right? Showing us this is what we do. We don't meditate on ourselves, we meditate on Krishna. And then he's giving so much charity of cows, playing the role of a grihasta so well, although he doesn't need to. Obviously he's above religious principles, but he's playing the role to play a good example. And then we see the ideal sannyasi, Lord Chaitanya, doing all these quite austere lifestyle. He even banished his dear devotee from his association, Chota Haridas, as an example, because if he wouldn't have done that, then, that must have hurt him greatly, in a sense. It's of course pastime, but, that must be a difficult thing to do, to banish your dear devotee. So, otherwise, Sahajiyas would have taken advantage of that and think it was okay to do their things that they do. And so forth and so on. So we see Krishna's playing a role, example, in a meticulous, perfect way, so that we all will know what to do. In fact, everything here is like, everything that we see here, we can see in God, in a sense. The way everything operates, and why should we do anything? Why not become godly? In the sense of what way Krishna does is the supreme leader, and not that we can duplicate, lifting Govardhan Hill with a pinky, but we can become godly in the sense of adopting an access or reawakening our eternal qualities, our intrinsic qualities, which are where we're equal in quality with Krishna. So I would like to share that we see everybody follows, whether we admit it or not, we're influenced by our leaders. Krishna being the supreme leader. So if you look at the way cultures view God and how they are, how they act. For example, they did a survey in America. How many people believe in eternal hell? That God damns people to eternal hell. It was over 50%. Over 50% of the people in America think that God puts people in eternal hell. The Christian belief is, there's different religions in America, but the Christian belief is, just a sample of one amongst many, is if you don't accept Jesus as your Savior, then God damns you at the time of your death, damns you to hell forever. Never, cannot be any redemption. Now imagine, imagine that. So as above, as below. We want to become godly, then godly basically means, in that particular scenario, like what happens if you just go, you didn't really understand what was said, you didn't go to church, you didn't know about Jesus so well, or didn't understand it, or maybe you did and you were just testing God, and then you oh my God, he's going to put me out, and then you could just say, oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No, you didn't do it in this life forever. No, I'm sorry, I'll do whatever you say. No, that's their version of God. So this version of God, to become godly, then would mean, in a sense, in some sense, become a monster. And within this with this viewpoint, we see, matters of the heart being smashed, radical amounts of slaughterhouses, and without even a thought of care. exist there, and so many other things, murder rates, and so many things. There's more abortions than live births in New York City. At least as of 10 years ago, I looked it up. And on and on and on. In fact, I was distributing books at Jones Beach. Did I already say this? No. And Jones Beach, it's a beach, people go play at the beach, like Jagannath Puri. And, it's all these kids playing and everything. And this one plane flies over with a banner. You get those in India where they advertise? And it's written, the plane's pulling a banner where you can read it and it's advertising. And it says 9-week abortion, only $499. Call this number. Yeah, there's like tens of thousands of families just playing on the beach. Dad, what does that say? Really, hardcore stuff. That's America. So, in relation to how we know God, so it behooves us to give the world, so like everybody follows their leader. God is the ultimate leader. If God in their minds is a monster, then they're monsters. Does that make sense? You understand my point? I'm extrapolating quite a bit. Like if over 50% of the people in America think that God damns people to eternal hell, that's quite a perspective of God. Anybody that would do that is a monster, right? At least that's the way I see it. Anyway, so it behooves us to try to increase it for ourselves, our understanding of God, and then automatically we will become more godly by reading Prabhupada's books on a regular basis and sharing the knowledge. To share the knowledge, unfortunately, India is following this monster program, I'll call it. It's kind of like nothing more than that. Atheistic, who cares about, so it's just economic development full speed ahead and people have to die, so be it. Basically in the United States right now, I've been watching it because I don't know when I want to go back, but the schools are open, I got a good chance to preach. But what they're doing is Trump is saying if you don't open, then you're not going to get money. So they're forcing it. And if they don't open, they have to close their schools for good. A lot of them, at least 50% will be bankrupt. So they're forcing it to open on the cost of people's lives because infections have gone crazy. It's over 60,000 yesterday in one day alone. And it's just going to increase rapidly with the schools opening. But economic development before caring about the individual is basically what is going on in a gross way. In fact, they've told all the Indians, all the foreign students, that sorry, you got to go. So, and unless you can get a school that's not online, so they have to shift around or they have to go back to India. Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked, but the point being that we'll call it the monster program is really not about you. It's not about the soul. It's not about God. And India is adopting this way. It's not the smartest way to go long term. It might look kind of good temporarily, but if you look at it more closely, it's not even good temporarily. It's kind of like making tractors and then putting 100 people out of work. And then those 100 people out of work, go to this city and it just creates problems. It's a simple example. So, so the point being that we see Krishna is Atmarama, he's self-satisfied. And he's fully engaged in duties, although he doesn't have to do any duties. In fact, we don't have to perform devotional service to Krishna. We don't have to be here. You didn't have to be here at Bhagavad-Gita class. It's optional. You're not forced. You might have to you might be forced to, probably going to be forced to leave your body at some point. and you're forced to eat, unless you want to leave your body sooner than later. You know, you're probably forced to sleep at our stage. So these are things. But you know, as far as your voluntary service, you know, it's voluntary. So Krishna is Atmaram. He's self-satisfied, yet he's engaged in full duties. So how do we become also self-satisfied? Is by being purely dependent on Krishna, which means engaging, you know, where we have Lord Chaitanya saying, my only desire is devotional service. That's it. Going for devotional service, and that's it. Not attached to the results of the service, what comes along with the service, and sometimes doesn't, what's taken away from you or given to you, not attached, just attached to the service itself. That's how we become Atmarama. And I'd like to share a story. So you could ask yourself, how self-satisfied do I feel? Yeah. And then you can then go, according to what I'm sharing, and it is a universal truth, axiomatic truth, that if one does perform one's devotional service, then one becomes satisfied. So we can ask ourselves, if I don't feel quite satisfied, not enough to where I'd like to be at, we could then say, well, was I on time for the morning program? Was I following the 64 regular principles well? Did I avoid the 10 offenses? Was I really hearing the holy name, every syllable when I was doing my japa? All the details, let alone the big stuff first. And then once we got the big stuff down, going into more and more details. Which leads to a little dialogue I had. Does anybody not know who Hanuman Prashak Swami Maharaj is? Hanuman Prashak Swami. Anybody know? You don't know? A wonderful devotee. Yeah. Okay. And at least he lives in America or goes to South America, I think, too. And he's known to be very intelligent. So I had some personal time with him, and I asked him, you know, I want to like, you know, max out devotional service, you know, rah, rah, rah. And, well, you have any suggestions? And his suggestions weren't, you know, build 10 more Sankirtan vans and, you know, distribute 100 times more books than you're doing now. That wasn't what he was saying, although that's a good idea too. But what he said was, he said, okay, there's a glass here. It's empty. Now I'm going to fill it up with rocks. And it's on can't put another rock on there. And he says, is that full? And I said, yeah. And he looks at me funny and goes, gets a bunch of sand, pours it in there also. So you can't even put one more grain of sand, it'll roll off. Okay, now is it full? I'm like, yeah. I said, huh? So he grabs some water and then pours it on the water until not a drop will continue. So the point being that he made is you have your service, but within the taking care of the details of your service, making sure there's not, you know, any what do we call it, space, like your bhajan is condensed. There's a nice Purity, I think is the name of the song by, forgot the name of the person. It's a wonderful bhajan, and within it it talks about how to get to Krishna Prema, and you have to condense your bhajan, condense it. And so, in other words, as I remember my guru saying, you know, time is not wasted in hours; it's wasted in seconds. You know, in between, you know, the Hari and the Krishna and your japa, how much room do we have for external, unnecessary thoughts, energy that is wasted, that could be transformed and applied into hearing more attentively the holy name and having that holy name reveal so many things. So condensing the bhajan, or taking he basically, Anupam Swami Maharaj was saying, you don't maybe need to change anything, but just do what you're doing more attentively and with more devotion and so forth and so on, was the theme of what he was sharing. So I just wanted to share that also, that I found helpful. And one last thing regarding yesterday's class and question about, correcting others and stuff. At least the way I've been trained in ISKCON leadership course that I took, they said, if you're the guru, if you have authorized to, correct people, that's one thing. But if you're not, what was recommended, if you do feel the need for that, what was shared from that course was you correct people, even as a manager. Let's say I've got some new bhaktas in my van and they need to be corrected, and they said you should sandwich 2 positives with the correction. So in other words, you might say, let's say he leaves his socks on the deck, dirty socks on the deck every day, and I share, I really appreciate you being eager to go out and distribute books. It's very inspiring. But if you don't mind the socks, if you could just put those in the cabinet, in place in your cabinet instead of on the deck. And by the way, I really appreciate you cutting up the sabji yesterday. It was so helpful. And thank you for having such a good service attitude. Like that, sandwiching them was what was given to me by the leaders in our movement from that leadership conference course. Now, it's kind of early. I could have went into the past times in much more detail, but I would like to open it up for discussion. Anybody have any comments or questions? So in summary, what I spoke about was kind of like 3 things. That Krishna here, O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed from me within all the 3 planetary systems, nor am I in want of anything, nor have I need to obtain anything, and yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. So Krishna is doing so that others will follow his path. That's as described in the next verse, to guide them properly. And we see so many unlimited pastimes of Krishna there in doing just that. And always loving and giving. And I also brought up the idea that a leader, everybody subtly or grossly follows their leaders, and Krishna being the supreme leader, so our perception of Krishna affects how we act. Like if our perception of Krishna is off, our actions might not be so wonderful. So therefore it behooves us to take time to read Prabhupada's books, get to know Krishna better, and share the knowledge with others. People have incredible misconceptions of God. And that is a most effective way to clear up the problems within society. And that a byproduct of being like Krishna is one becomes self-satisfied, as Krishna is self-satisfied. One is not in need of anything other than service. That's it. And from that, thinking about how self-satisfied I am, even though I'm fully engaged in devotional service, we can monitor with how well I'm doing. And we can always improve. In fact, that's Vaisheshika Guru at his temple. He has there's objectives, and then there's like a motto, like a phrase that you work with as a team. And his is always better service. It's a good motto, or whatever the right word are. Probably a better word than that. So always better service. So always we can improve. We can become more self-satisfied. It might not be the externals that is the problem. We have that tendency to say, oh, it's the weather, that's why I'm not self-satisfied. Oh, it's this Prabhu, my next door neighbor, that's why I'm not self-satisfied. Or it's the prasad, my goodness, that's why I'm not, of course the prasad here is great, my neighbors here are great, so I don't have any excuses, obviously, but we have this tendency to do like this. So the reason why I'm not self-satisfied is because I don't have Krishna prema yet, fully, not totally there. But if one is internal in their thinking, then one can always improve and make rapid progress to the goal. Any comments or questions? Come on now. Yeah. Is there a mic up there on top? Right there, Prabhu. Hi, Prabhuji. Prabhuji. It's right there. Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There you go. Hare, Hare, Hare. Good question. What's the difference between being self-satisfied and being lazy? Well, lazy is from the mode of ignorance. And when we're with laziness comes being neglectful, not on the ball, not keeping up with stuff, and it catches up with you. It catches up with you. It's not lasting. It might seem like self-satisfied, but it doesn't last, because all the neglectful things, they catch up with you, and then you usually get very angry or whatever else. Dissatisfaction definitely follows laziness. Maybe not immediately, but it follows. Yeah. Yeah. Like tamagun, yeah. Like in truth, as somewhere it said, there's only two really happy people: the complete, bum, and this completely unaware, the drunken, intoxicated person or whatever, and the fully realized soul. So everywhere in between, people are in distress. So, but at some point, that bum, intoxicated character is, gonna get out of his slumber and realize that he's suffering. As Prabhupada says, if one doesn't realize one's suffering, then one is insane. If one thinks I'm not suffering, then you're either a fully realized soul or you're insane. So as long as there's still ignorance there, one is going to experience suffering, because one is misidentifying the self with the body. There's still material bodily consciousness. If we're not fully Krishna conscious yet, then there's going to be some material consciousness, some contamination is there. But if one has, you see this in the West a lot. A lot of people don't even know that they're suffering. They're completely insane. And these are like not people in nut houses, but people walking around the street all the time. Yeah. Did you have a question? Yeah. Or a comment?
What is the reason the duties performed by the Lord? What is the reason behind this?
Could you repeat that? I'm so sorry. Could you repeat?
Is the reason, whatever the duties prescribed by the Lord, what is their reason? To give pleasure for the devotees or to teach the humankind? What is the reason behind the Lord performed by the duties?
What are the reasons behind why Krishna performs duties?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned one of them to give the devotees pleasure, right? Yeah. Bhakti-vatsala, right? He's a lover of his devotees. I mean, if you have everything, like going back to my micro analogy, I don't know if you were here, where, you know, not that I'm Krishna or anything, but I felt like, you know, anyways, live to love, you know, became my motto, my drive at some point. And, you know, all the other motives, if you have everything, then you don't need anything, right? But Krishna likes loving exchanges, right? And if we look at the spiritual world, I don't think it's anything but that. Rasa, right? It's all about rasa, relationships. It's all about loving exchanges. That's all the spiritual world is. Krishna having a loving exchange with the jivas. And Krishna having loving exchanges, in a sense, well, I won't go into this because I don't fully understand it, but yeah, I won't go there. So, you know, expansions of Krishna, he's having loving exchanges with, and it's just one big loving exchange. So, could you comment on this? You want to read it? Here, can you give him the mic? She's sharing more because he's more senior and knows more than me. He's saving me.
The next two verses, he says, if I fail to engage to carefully perform prescribed duties, certainly all men would follow my path. And the next verse, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population. I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. That's the reason why he engages in prescribed duties.
Yeah, thank you. I think I was talking about maybe on a higher sense, but that as a general sense, for sure, which includes the higher sense. What does that answer your question? Does that answer your question? No? You asked, why does Krishna perform duties? And then these two texts explain, at least Krishna's explaining why he performs these duties. Are you satisfied with that, or are you looking for something more? What? Satisfied? Okay. All right. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other comments or questions? Yeah. Mike.
Prescribed duty is somebody has to prescribe. Prescribed duties means like prescribed like prescription is given by doctor. Prescribed duties.
Well, he's prescribed. That's a good comment. You're smart. Yeah, prescribed means somebody has scribed them before scribed them, but who has scribed them is Vyasadeva and the Vedas. But the scribe was taught by Krishna himself. So that's the prescribed, is my understanding. Nobody is greater than Krishna. So these prescribed duties come from Krishna and scribed previously to this Vyasadeva, and was spoken, of course, as well.
If somebody does a brahmachari or whatever ashram, so if he is doing something, like this is some general principle is there, like he has to come over and do these things. And after that, he has to do some service. So, if his authority is telling him that you do this service, like we were discussing, and that person is not satisfied with the service. So, like this advancement will be like on the path of devotional service, the person will go ahead, or it will be like a hindrance.
I missed the last sentence though. I got the rest of it.
Like if authority is telling, right, some service can, some ABC, and that person says, no, I just don't want to do, or I cannot do this, whatever. So that person, advancement in devotional service, it will be like it will be slow, it will get slow down.
Got it. Good question. Yeah. So the question is, these prescribed duties. Let's just say you're a brahmachari serving here. Let's say, or anywhere. Let's say anywhere. Serving anywhere, and the authorities, temple president, whoever, temple commander gives, duties for the person to perform, but the devotees performing the duties might not be happy with those duties, or might want to do something different or in a different way. And then the question being, does that, if he were to voice that, would that slow down his progress? So there's a lot of factors involved with this. As a general rule of thumb, best just to serve. I'm in the mood of service. How may I serve you? As a general rule of thumb. But for example, I was asked by the authorities to wash the pots and to cut vegetables. Okay. If you wash, it softens the hands, and then you cut and you make nice bloody vegetables. So, hey, I'm sorry, I can't use that knife. I'll scrape whatever they peel. I'll peel. I'm sorry, I just can't. If you want me here doing service, because I washed the pots, I didn't know about gloves back then. Now I have gloves, but I have to peel only and not use the knife because I got all these cuts, and if you don't want to have bloody vegetables. So this is simply a request that I'm making. It's more like almost a demand. Well, it's actually not a demand. It's just saying, if you want me here, I can't use the knife because I can't make. You don't want to have bloody vegetables, right? So that's okay. It's perfectly fine. Now, if they were to say sorry, and if anybody's going to act like crazy, like, no, we like bloody vegetables, sorry, you can't peel, because there's peeling and cutting. A peeler can become a cutter, and then I just become a peeler, and everything's solved. But if somebody's going to act crazy, which people are sometimes a little out there, you can then take it up to the next person and go, this is really wild, but why not adjust? I can't do this service because, that's perfectly fine, and that's their responsibility to deal with such things. So it's not like we're robots. Prabhupada said surrender, but never surrender your intelligence. Like, for example, there's been some really crazy things on a rare occasion. And bad things have happened because of that. But here's a simple example. Prabhupada gave an instruction to a disciple, and the disciple fell down, and he came back and he told Prabhupada, I knew I was going to fall down doing what you asked me to do. And Prabhupada said, well, why didn't you tell me? Right? So here's a sample of where Prabhupada is saying, please share, if you have an issue with this, strong issue. Not that we have an issue with everything, we always get what we want, not do it, in unsubmissive service, not at all. The mood is, how we make advancement, right? Inquire submissively and render service. This is how we make the advancement. And I say, certainly as a general rule of thumb, are the leaders in our movement are wonderful at engaging other people nicely in Krishna consciousness. But you might have some weird stuff on a rare occasion. So why not consult with your guru? Why not consult with his higher authority? Why not, that's okay when you think something's kind of serious here, both needs to take place, right? But we're definitely not robots. But we want to think, what's in my highest interest to make rapid advancement? And what is that modus operandi to make more rapid advancement, which includes helping the world make rapid advancement. Helping the world make rapid advancement. In other words, I might say, whatever pleases Prabhupada the most is how you're going to make the most rapid advancement. So our authorities might ask us to do the needful, which you don't like. I was in my more immature stages in Krishna consciousness, around some other people that weren't so mature, we made some complaints. Just privately within us. And one Prabhupada disciple picked up on it. And he said, my service was simply this. And when the World War II, they hit the beaches. And German pillbox was there, mowing down everybody that would hit the beaches. Waves and waves of soldiers coming in, all dying. Eventually, after thousands mowed down, a grenade got into the pillbox and blew up the pillbox. So this one Prabhupada disciple who kind of heard some of this said, my service was simply hitting that beach, getting shot, and making sure I fell on the barbed wire fence so that devotees behind me could walk over me more easily to get over the fence, to eventually put the grenade in the pillbox. He says that was his function. So is that what he would ideally like to do? The general made that call, and the troops went out, and eventually they took over the beach, and so forth and so on. So I don't. I'm gonna get wet getting the beach. I might get shot. I don't know. We have to just do the needful, but at the same time, if we think that the call is a little crazy, which has happened in wartime before, and but don't have you ever heard the phrase crying wolf? Crying wolf means you cry when there's not a big deal going on. You make an issue when there's really not that much a big deal on. And then and you do that a few times, and then when there's a real issue, nobody listens to you. So be careful. I don't know if that was okay to your satisfaction, Prabhu, but it's a tough thing to answer. But as a general rule of thumb, being around a couple decades or more, I think our leaders are doing a great job. But at the same time, there's room for think tanks, and there's room for people to question, and there's room for all that to improve, for the sake of improvement, not for the sake of rebelliousness, just for the sake of lording it over. But for the sake of improvement, I think Prabhupada would greatly appreciate it. That's my own stance on it. But for the purpose of keeping things productive and not trying to lord it over. But be very careful. Do it respectfully. Yeah. But there's many, I was just speaking with one guru recently, talks about self-entrepreneurial devotional life. You know, like, do your own thing and have at it. You know, like that. So there's room for all kinds of stuff. Krishna's all accommodating. Somebody's an entrepreneurial type, fine. Somebody's just like just tell me what to do type, fine. Somebody's a super ambitious type, go for it. You know, somebody's, you know, there's room for, Krishna's all accommodating. There's shouldn't be any dogmatic structure. At the same time, Prabhupada did give us a structure. So, I'll leave it at that. You have a question? Oh, okay, sir. Is that okay? But we have to do it respectfully and not rock the boat too much to where, you know, cause more of a problem than a good thing. But just do it, yeah, if you're with the right motive. Krishna hears that, he appreciates it, you're trying to help. But not to make a bigger mess, more of a mess than a help. Because that can often happen if we're not mature about it. Alright. Srimad Bhagavad-Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.